Good afternoon, evening, morning or night viewer. My name is Alexander, and this is the first video for my authorship, and it will be dedicated to the series, which was released relatively recently, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Before continue, I want to explain, the purpose of the video is not only to retelling and noticing errors, inconsistencies, logical holes, miscasting of many characters, and let's be honest, apotheosis of stupidity. The main idea what made me to record this video, to show how for the same budget, and if you have at least some desire, they could give us, viewers and fans of Star Wars, something more watchable and not causing such indignation and rage, which we were given by Mickey Mouse once again since the purchase of the franchise in 2012. So let's get started. The series begins with cuts of footages from the prequel, reminiscent of the events what led to the fall of the Republic and the Jedi Order, as well as the formation of the Empire under the leadership of the Sith, Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader. I can't say anything here except for a good decision, since the third film ends with a gloomy ending, leaving the characters broken and in doubt. Bail Organa and Obi-Wan Kenobi embark on a new mission. The mission is to shelter Anakin Skywalker's children, Leia and Luke, from the Emperor Palpatine. Bail Organa takes Leia to Alderaan, and Obi-Wan takes Luke to Tatooine, where he will guard him, and when he will reach the required age, teach him the ways of the Force. Master Yoda will be forced to hide on the planet Dagobah, those Dark Aura will shelter him from the seekers of the Emperor Palpatine and Darth Vader. On Tatooine, Anakin Skywalker have a distant relatives, to whom Obi-Wan gives to take care of Luke. Then we are showing a scene from the Jedi Temple during Order 66, on the night Anakin Skywalker falls to the dark side. Why the cameraman shakes the camera in attempt to add action dynamic, I will leave it to your discretion. I am here on scenario issues. After killing the Jedi teacher, a group of younglings, what we see on the screen, runs away, leaving us a hook that the younglings will somehow be connected with the further events and the characters of the series. In the next scene, we are introduced to a new characters, what we have not yet seen on a big screen, namely the Inquisitors of the Empire. A little note, the mention of the Inquisitors was still in the old canon, but the function of this organization was almost always reduced to the working with intelligence. Officers and agents of the Empire collected information, infiltrated various groups, both among the rebels and among renegades of the Empire itself. Analyzing the information received, it was passed on to Vader, who was engaged for several years after the fall of the Republic in hunting the Jedi. There were no Inquisitors with him, there was no need for it. Moreover, Emperor Palpatine was strictly opposed to Vader's subordination, not only to have such an organization with many useful contacts and tools of influence within the Empire, but also with several other adherents of the dark side. The way of the Sith is a betrayal. The presence of the Inquisitors on the side of Vader would give him opportunity to overthrow the Emperor, and this is already a serious threat. Therefore, there were no such Inquisitors in the old canon. And now, this is where the fun begins. We're showing a shuttle arriving on Tatooine and landing right in the center of the street, from which three strange entities in the dark robes emerge. The design was drawn from the Rebel series, so if you have a feeling that those freaks are very contrasting even by the standards of the Star Wars, you're not mistaken. After all, really, why recycle, adjust to realism the appearance? For example, add a number of plates from the Beskar what were in the series of Mandalorian. Everyone like it? It would look beautiful and moreover logical, since armor capable of repelling the blow of a lightsaber would not cause questions such as why do they need this mountain of plastic on themselves? But never mind. After that, a group with complex faces and throwing eyebrows follow the main street towards the cantina, and the leader of the group, the Grand Inquisitor, addresses with a monologue to the owner of the cantina. The essence of the monologue as it follows: we are the most dangerous and we're looking for the weak Jedi, those who were supposed to protect you but not able to take care of themselves, but we can, so give us the disposition of the fugitive. One of the Inquisitors, Reva, bored, decided to hurry up the events by throwing a stabbing cutting object in order to inflict bodily heaviness on the bartender, and forces the Jedi to use the Force and impersonate himself. Finding the one they are looking for, they languidly turn towards the Jedi and stand still. The fugitive tries to escape, as he is blocked by only one Reva, showing at least some initiative to capture the Jedi. The Grand Inquisitor orders to take him alive, but breaking the chain of the command, Reva swings a sword with intention of killing the fugitive. The Grand Inquisitor uses the Force to prevent the completion of the blow and throws Reva aside, after which Jedi use an innovative way avoiding of the chase in the cinema. He throws two curtains behind him and the entrance and runs away. And the Inquisitors stand with their mouth open, because they did not seem to have been prepared for such insurmountable difficulties. Reva is reprimanded for disobedience, and we learn from the dialogue that Reva wants a larger goal than a city Padawan. Grand Inquisitor tries to put her in her place, but he does not react to the rudeness in response, and the scene changes. And here I finally want to show you what I am recording this video for. The so-called starting and ending points will be left unchanged, and here, if I were a screenwriter, would do this. Show the shuttle on approach. Inside we observe two characters, Reva and the second Inquisitor, the fifth brother. They are standing on opposite sides of the shuttle. From the pilot cabin comes the Grand Inquisitor, saying, "We're almost there. You know your task and what will be if you fail." He turns to Reva, "Name our goal." Reva responds, "Kill the Padawan who thinks he is a Jedi." On those words, she would have been interrupted by the fifth brother, who objected that their goal should not be to kill, but to catch. And during interrogation, to find out whatever this Padawan alone, have he information about other Jedis, and an attempt to turn him to their side. The Grand Inquisitor silently nods and ends the dialogue, and while going back to the pilot, throws Reva the final phrase, what we hear in the series.
Whatever power you are craving, it will not change what you are.
And what is that?
The least of us.
We are showing the evil face of Reva, and the shuttle nails to Tatooine, but lands not in the center of the street, but in a specially designed place. Hangars are called. Because landing in the center of a street is such a folly. You might as well inform all the inhabitants of Tatooine in advance that a group of Inquisitors is coming now, and therefore all the fugitive Jedi on this planet will have time to escape and hide. No, this is a secret operation, and therefore, having landed on Tatooine, Reva and fifth brother begin a kind of competition. After all, everyone wants to earn the authority and attention of Darth Vader for capturing of a Jedi. For example, add a scene like Reva using the Force without attracting attention to herself, walks along Mos Eisley, the so-called location from the series. Like a snooper, she tries to feel another sensitive to the Force, but because of anger and humiliation, she cannot concentrate, which leads her to even greater anger. The change of frame, where the fifth brother does the same, but unlike Reva, he manages to track down the Padawan in the cantina, carefully approaching the entrance and not giving himself away, and begins to look at those present in attempt to find out who is the Jedi. You can add a scene, suppose how the fifth brother studies the gaits and movements of the people in the cantina, trying to find someone who with his movements, behavior and static can resemble someone who was trained in the Jedi temple. After drawing conclusions and finding the target, he begins to get closer to his victim. Getting close enough, he activates his lightsaber, trying to disarm the Jedi. The Jedi in turn manage to repel the blow, and a duel begins, where the fifth brother unleashes a series of blows on his opponent, in attempt to cut off an arm or leg, and transfers the fight to the outside. The Jedi, clearly inferior in skill, retreats to the main street, and with his back in fear stumbles upon Reva, who runs to the noise of the crowd. The fifth brother says, "You are late, the Jedi is mine." Reva replied something like, "In my opinion, he is my hands," disarming the Jedi and pushing him away for herself, after which the fifth brother, in a rage, attacks Reva, and she, in turn, with the desire to take out her anger on her offender and prove that she is not the weakest, accepts the challenge to the duel. And then the Jedi take advantage of the moment of escape and run into the crowd. The duel will be interrupted by the Grand Inquisitor, who would watch his wards as they perform the task. After that, he would have addressed the crowd, since there is no longer a conspiracy. that they are looking for a Jedi and will definitely find him, and whoever assists will be rewarded, and whoever is not will suffer the punishment of the Empire. With the same scenario, but adding a couple of lines and a couple of movements, the scene plays with a completely different colors, doesn't it? The next moment where I want to stop is the abduction of Leia Organa. Princess Leia. Being adopted by the Senator Bail Organa, Leia's childhood, unlike her brother Luke, took place in completely different conditions. Bail Organa is a senator from the planet Alderaan. It is the home of many famous heroes, such as Jedi Knight Ulic Qel-Droma. The planet becomes known through the galaxy for its impeccable beauty, refined culture. Alderaan was considered one of the key planets of the Republic for the development of the hyperspace. As you can see, Leia's foster family was unusual. Moreover, despite the fact that other representatives of the noble families of Alderaan were aware that Leia was not the native daughter of Bail Organa, thanks to the loopholes in the legalization, she could receive the title of a princess and become a representative in the Senate from the Alderaan system. After refreshing the memory of Alderaan and the Organa family, we return to the series. The first half, where we are introduced to the character of Leia, who is only 10 years old, is quite good. Leia behaves as a child, who is alien to the court etiquette, long dinners with representatives of the nobility, and honored guests from the other systems. Like any child, she wants adventure, and the affairs of her parents has little concern to her. But it so happened that today the House of Organa received important guests from several noble houses and the other representative of the Senate. The problem lies in the second half of the Leia episode. You see, Inquisitor Reva somehow learned that Bail Organa was relative to the Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi, and since Reva wants a bigger goal, she has a plan. The plan sounds like this. Kidnapped Bail's daughter Leia, after which Bail will contact Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan will climb out of his hiding place where he was been for 10 years, and then he comes for Leia, then Reva will grab him. Okay, let's omit the moments as, for example, why Reva is sure that Bail Organa have direct contact with Obi-Wan, why there is a guarantee that Bail and Obi-Wan were so close that they later put himself at such risk. Let me remind you that neither Reva nor anyone else except Yoda and Obi-Wan knew that Leia was one of the two children of Anakin Skywalker and Padmé Amidala, that taking such a valuable hostage will certainly force Obi-Wan to act. Okay, let's drop it. The screenwriter decided to write a movie with abduction of a child from the most influential and rich family of the planet. So, how do you do that? Here's how. For convenience, let's imagine that the House of Organa is a royal family from England. So, you have to go to a gang LA in London, hire 3 idiots who remind me a lot of Bill's gangs from the Back Future 2, let them know that their target is a Prince Charles. After that, they calmly without noise and dust will reach the back entrance of Buckingham Palace, and seizing the moment when Prince Charles will go out to breathe in the air without any escort in the territory that is naturally not guarded in any way, 30 meters from the palace, 3 clowns threw a bag on his head and carry him without much obstacles to another city, let's say Paris, and the entire royal guard doesn't even lead with an ear. I just don't understand, but tried many times to get into the head of the film crew. None of them or the actors had any questions such as, people, what are we doing? How about stopping a little and think? This is me saying nothing about how 3 men, cunning like ninjas, able to get unnoticing literally to the walls of the House of Organa, and cannot catch a child in a straight line a few meters from themselves. Or here, for example, how can you miss your goal in such a situation? But those questions to the director for such a production of the action. You want Leia to be kidnapped. Okay, here's my version invented in 5 minutes on the knee during the first viewing of the series. We were told about the banquet at the Organa family. Among the arriving guests, the director was focused on one of them. It would be a man in a beautiful ceremonial clothes, charming and charismatic. If you want, let it be a girl, who introduced herself as a member of the Senate. Already in the banquet hall, this character heard an argument between Leia and her cousin, who dropped a phrase, wedged himself into the dialogue, that consanguinity is not a guarantee that you will grow into a ruler worthy of your parents. In the next scene show another interaction of Leia, deciding to show attention and express gratitude for support, and decides to find this stranger. A dialogue would ensue between them, during which a stranger deftly playing on the child's feeling would make Leia admit that such events are not to her liking and it would be better for her to be in the secluded place near the palace now. After that, they would leave the palace. On the way out of the Organ's house, they would have been stopped by security, blocking the path of the future princess alone with an unfamiliar senator. The men would object when on the territory of the House Organs, Leia is not in danger, but let the guards go with them for safety. The guards, having lost their vigilance, would agree and follow them. Upon reaching the place where Leia watched the arrival and departure of the shuttles, it turned out that the senator is a mercenary who had been ordered to kidnap the Leia. Deftly approaching one of the guards and quickly disarm and taking possession of the weapon would get rid of unnecessary witnesses and stun Leia, quickly heading to the evacuation point where he was be picked by his mission partners. By arranging the abduction in this way, we as a viewer would understand two things. The first, that it is possible someone learn about Leia's real parents, and the second, watching the mercenary with such a level of training, acting skills, character, who does not neglect to play on the feeling of a child to achieve his goal, would make us wonder who was able to hire such a specialist. The level of the threat and the enemy that Obi-Wan will have to face would be inspire respect. Let Obi-Wan be one of the strongest Jedi on his time, he is alone, and he would be confronted by an unknown number of enemies with such a high level of training. Tormented by the fear that Luke's incognito had been revealed and he would also be in danger, he would have been forced to choose whether to go in search of Leia or sacrifice her for the benefit of the second child, Luke. I repeat, what I described above I came up with 5 minutes after watching the first series. And now, since it's not impossible not to say a few words about Obi-Wan in the first episode, let's move on to him. Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan. You know, originally video planned to include episode 2 and 3, but due to the fact that this is my first project of this kind and until recently I have zero experience, I decided to divide my story into several parts. Given that I'm running through the biggest misunderstandings and foolish on this series, even so episode 2 and 3 will take about 40 minutes, if not more. Therefore I will transfer my monologue of winning about the Obi-Wan character to the next videos. Just by tracing the character arcs to the first series inclusive, it will be already possible to compare the image of the hero from the canon version, also called Legends, and the image what was given out by a group of creative people with a dubious competence. For a start, let's imagine that neither you or I know what will happen in the next episodes, and let's take a look at the next 2 points. The first one, the scene in which the Jedi from the first scene of the series finds Obi-Wan in the desert.
But I have nowhere to go. They're hunting me. You have to help me.
Obi-Wan says the line.
You want my help? Take this. Walk into the middle of the desert and bury it in the ground.
One would assume that this is some kind of allegory, though it's not clear to what, but no, he really recommended folding his weapon, burying this weapon, and despite the fact that the identity of the fugitive was revealed, Obi-Wan literally abandons him to the mercy of the fate. And this is the man who through his life personified the ideals of the Jedi Order. A man who, despite the death of the teacher at the early age, despite the heavy burden of responsibility that fell on the shoulders of Obi-Wan after the death of Qui-Gon to raise and train the Chosen One, despite the death of his beloved Satine and the death of a friend by his own hand, Anakin Skywalker, all of this never made Obi-Wan give up, fall into apathy, or turn to the dark side. As Luke Skywalker would later say,
Ben is a great man.
legacy of Obi-Wan lived a long time after his death. And now you want to say that such a hero turned into seedy, pathetic old man, tormented by a guilt for 10 years so much so that he lost touch with the Force? And the second point arising from above. But if the Inquisitors were to approach Luke Skywalker, what could Obi-Wan do for his safety? After all, he really buried his sword somewhere in the center of a sea of dunes. There is no connection to the Force. What could he do against the same Inquisitors, or let's say Vader? To make a pity by his appearance. As you can see, literally from the start, the entire story arc and character building went completely in a wrong direction. I would like much to continue the conversation on this topic in detail, but I repeat, this is my first video. Therefore, the next parts will be devoted to Obi-Wan without unnecessary prefaces. So, if you enjoyed the video, press like button. If you like alternative scene, you can make a comment under the video to discuss it with me. And now I wish you a good morning, day, evening or night. See you soon.